What is going on, everyone? This is Ippsec, and I hope you've been enjoying Cyber Apocalypse 2025 so far. For my workshop, I'm going to be covering a challenge I had made for last year's Cyber Apocalypse, and that is the testimonial challenge. Now, when I created this challenge, I wanted to keep the exploitation simple, but use a lot of new technologies that people may not be familiar with, because that's one of my favorite things about CTFs, and that is finding new things that you're not familiar with, researching them a little bit, and then applying some previous exploitation things that you know to the new technology. So with that being said, let's just get into it. You can play the testimonial challenge on the main platform. It's under challenges, and we're going to click start challenge and then also download files. And we'll save all these files and move them over into our directory. So move downloads testimonial.zip, and then we can extract it. So 7-zip extract this, and the passwords hack the box. And then we have a list of all the files. So I'm just going to delete the testimonial.zip to get it out of the way. And then if we go back to the platform, we see it gave us an IP address and two different IP addresses. So I'm going to copy this, and let's just take a look at the first port, 45775. So I'm going to go 45775, and we see the web page. And if we click around, there's nothing we can do. We can do your testimonial. If I put Ippsec, or let's do please subscribe, and then write Ippsec and do submit, we can see it gets submitted here. And then our URL is just showing us that it went over a get parameter. We can see that at the very top. So let's go take a look at that second port. So I'm going to go back here, and it's 53754. So we'll do 53754. And we just get connection reset. If I go over into, let's say, curl, and we make a request, we get HTTP 0.9 is not allowed. We can do like -i-v to see if we see anything else, but it's just closing the connection. And this is a gRPC port. And that is like a protocol buffer from Google. And we'll talk more about that once we start going over the application. But let's go open up Visual Studio Code and look at what we have. So waiting for code to open. There it is. Let's make this a little bigger. And we can take a look at everything. So if we go into the Docker file, we can see how it stands up. And if you try to build this, you're going to have a little bit of trouble because I use the latest tags here. I probably shouldn't, and I should have hard coded it to a specific commit because this challenge is a year old and these frameworks have changed a little bit. So it just doesn't work right off the bat, right? And we can see the Docker's exposing two ports, LEET and 50045. Let's see, if we go over into the challenge, we see main.go. So this is going to be the core of the application. We also see error.toml. And I think if we looked at entrypoint.sh, we can see, let's see, it's moving the flag to flag and then some random string.text and then calling error. So if we look at the error.toml, we see this config. And I don't know exactly how to, what error is, other than I use it for hot reloading my application. So with Golang, when we create a web server, if we wanted to change something, we'd have to rebuild the executable, then run it. And every time you just change a little bit of text, you'd have to go back in the terminal and change run a few commands, then reload it in the browser. So what error is allowing us to do here is monitor a directory for certain extensions. In this case, it's going to be TPL, temple, and HTML. And upon a change being made to one of these files, it's going to generate the new temple config. And we'll go over what temple is in a second, and then build the application. So what temple is, it's a, blanking on the word, a templating language. So if we Google Golang temple, this will probably bring us over to GitHub where we can view it. You can read exactly what this is, but it's just a templating language. And if we looked over in, let's see, maybe not public, where would it be? View, home, index.temple. So this is it. So we can see the index. We have the app layout, and we're just giving it a bunch of HTML. And then somewhere in this HTML, we're calling a Golang function. This is the testimonials. So if you're used to like Jinja 2 and Python, you'd normally see like the double brackets like this. It's kind of the same thing, right? So we're calling this testimonials function. And if we scroll all the way down, we can see what testimonials is. It's going to loop over items in this get testimonials function and then give HTML for them. And if we look at it, back to the website, let's see, let's copy the URL 45775. The loop is just generating these boxes. So we can look at what this is. It's going in the public testimonials directory, listing all the files in it, and then giving us the contents. So that's all index.temple is. So we've gone over air, we've gone over temple. Let's just go to main.go and see what this project looks like. So in main, we see it is going to be using Chi, which is just a HTTP router. Golang did a lot of work recently on the net HTTP router, the built-in one. So chances are if I were to recreate this challenge, I just use the built-in one. But in this case, I'm using Chi. There's a bunch of other ones, Chi, Fiber, Gin, but most people now are using just net HTTP. But we can see we're creating two routes. The first one is / and anything. And if we have anything, it's just going to direct us to a file server and then embedding the directory. So that's going to be how it just loads static files off the disk. And then on just /, we're going to call this make handler. If we look at what make handler does, it's just going to set up the response. So we return HTML or HTTP, I should say. And it's going to call this function handle home index. And if we look at this is going to be what displays our page. So we're going to query to see if we have a customer or a testimonial parameter. And when we submitted it, you saw it here, right? If we did test, we see that's where the parameters go. So if we have these parameters, then we are going to call get client and then send testimonial. And this is interacting with gRPC. And if we don't have those, or after we submit it, it's now going to return home index, render, and then the response. So let's go back over to main.go. And we see there's also a Go routine starting the gRPC server. And then this is starting the HTTP server. So if we go to the gRPC server, it's just going to listen on 50045, and then it's going to start the Ricky service. And this PB stands for protobuf. And this, if you're familiar with like Flask, Fast API, things like that, the protobuf, think of it as just all your endpoints, right? So if we go in the PB directory, these two files are going to be automatically generated. So you'd call like protobuf to generate them from this ptypes.proto file. It can be named anything. I named it ptypes.proto for prototypes. And this is essentially going to serve as all the endpoints. So in the service, we create this RPC endpoint to say submit testimonial. So that's going to be the function. And then the next thing is going to be what it accepts. So it accepts a testimonial submission. If we look at that message, we can see it is two strings. We have a customer and a testimonial. And that is going to return a generic reply, which is just a message. So that's essentially how gRPC works. So let's play with this real quick. We're going to use gRPC curl first because that is probably everyone's first intuition to use. But I think if you try to use gRPC curl to solve the challenge, you'll have a lot of trouble. But it's a good starting point to just treat gRPC like HTTP, which everyone's familiar with, right? So I'm going to, let's see. Is it that? There's my clipboard. Let's do 53754. 53754, like that. So if we curl this, we get that's not allowed. I have gRPC curl on my system. You can get it from GitHub if you just Googled like gRPC curl GitHub, then do the go install command. That's how you'd get it. So we have too few arguments. We want to specify probably plain text. Oh, before we do that, we got to do a function. And the first function I do is list. It's not going to work here, but I want to show you what it kind of looks like. We now have to specify it is plain text because gRPC normally expects SSL. So we see the server does not support Reflection API. If it was configured in debug mode with Reflection enabled, this would tell us what service it is. So it's kind of like the OpenAPI.json or Swagger interface, just listing all the endpoints. But since Reflection's disabled, we can't just use the list without the protobuf file itself. So I'm going to go into the challenge directory just to make it a little bit easier. And we're going to specify the protobuf file. So if I do proto, and then we'll do pb ptypes dot, if I can type, ptypes dot proto. And now list, we see it is Ricky service. So if I look at Ricky service, we can see its methods that it supports is submit testimonial. And then if I call submit testimonial, I think it's with the slash. Let's see. Symbol not found. Oh, because we're calling list. That's an actual method. So if we do this, we get an error message, name is required. So now that's how we kind of play with the whole protobuf. So if we wanted to, we could look at exactly what the parameters are. We could try specifying name, but I did a bad job writing the error messages, so it's not actually the fields, because if I did name Ippsec, we still have unknown field name. So if we go back into the code, we can see that field is customer probably. So I'm going to change that, and we'll change it to be customers Ippsec. And then it's saying content is required. So we'll do the next field, which is testimonial, because again, the error messages are coded poorly. And we'll say hello from gRPC. And we see testimonial has been submitted successfully. So now if I go back to the page and we refresh, we have hello from gRPC. So we have successfully sent a message from our application, or from gRPC curl. So let's look at exactly how the website is using this. So on the home handler, let's see, it's calling c.sendTestimonial. And if we look at the function in client, it's going to filter for a lot of bad characters. So we have all this slash, the double slash, colon, star, question mark. So we can't send bad characters through the website. But since we can talk to gRPC directly, we can just go directly to submit testimonial and potentially bypass the filter because the filter is being placed on the client here. So let's see exactly where this submit testimonial is. If we go into main, let's see gRPC new server. It's probably in this gRPC.go. Here it is. So whenever you have a RPC method here, there has to be a function with the same exact name. So we have that function, the same name here, and this is the gRPC server. So this, when we get a call on that, this is where it gets directed to, and we see submit testimonial. And if we have no customer, the name is required, no testimonial, content is required. Probably should have renamed it to be customers required, whatever, but I didn't. So that's how you're supposed to read those error messages. And then what it's going to do. So it's going to do an OS write file, public testimonials, and then specify the customer. And then the contents of that file is going to be the testimonial itself. So since we can interact with the gRPC service directly, we can abuse a path traversal. We can put .. in our customer. If we try to do it through the HTTP parameters, we can't, because if we go to home where it actually uses it in the client, it will be filtering periods out with a blank, right? So we can't do it from an HTTP parameter, but we can do it from a direct call to gRPC. So I guess we can try to show that real quick. What's my time at? Yeah, we have time to show this. So I'm going to do, how's it doing replace? It's only doing it in the customer. That's actually going to be tough to see. Never mind, I can't show it. I was hoping I did it both in customer and testimonial, because if I did, then we could easily reflect the output here. But we don't see the customer name here. Everything is anonymous. So we can't really show that filter being in place. But let us now build a file, because what we have to do is abuse that path traversal bug. So instead of writing to public testimonials, instead of writing in this directory, we got to go up 2 directories. And then we want to go into view, home, index.temple, and then replace this file. Because if we write this temple file, then error will see, oh, this file changed, and rebuild our application. And if we tried to pass a whole file like this in just the command line through gRPC curl, it's going to be an absolute nightmare, because there's so much escaping we have to do. There's line breaks. There's a bunch of just stuff we'd have to do. It's so much easier if we just go and make an application, because we can read it as a file and submit it without having to worry about escapes. So I'm going to make a directory. Let's call it solve. And then we'll do a go mod init and call the project pwn. And then I'm going to touch main.go. And what I want to do is copy the client. So we'll go into, what do we call it? Challenge client. And then we also want to copy the protobuf directory. So we'll copy both of those here. And then we will open up Visual Studio. And we're going to create a basic application to connect to the gRPC and send a testimonial, just like we did with gRPC curl. And then we're going to change it up to send a file that will read the flag, hopefully. So let's make this a bit bigger. We can do package main. What just went on there? No. Main. There we go. Func main like this. fmt print line. Let's just make sure this all works. View terminal. We'll do go run dot. There we go. So now we are have a Go application. So what we want to do is import the client. And before we do that, let's look at these errors. We're getting library not found here because we have to install gRPC. So let's see. Let's do a go get on this, and I think that will get it. So do go get, install that package. Those errors went away. We go over to the client. It's trying to import HTTP challenge protobuf, because that's what the package was named. We created our package called pwn. So do pwn protobuf. And now the last thing we have to do is change where we talk to. I don't know why I'm doing a sprint F here. We can just paste it as a string. So let's do quotes. And then I can go back into my gRPC command, and let's grab the full endpoint from that. So if we copy this, we can now paste that. And the client has been updated. So if I go back to the main, we can start using the client. So I'm going to do C error. Then we can do client.getClient. If error equals nil, we'll print the error. And now we should be able to use the client. Now there's 2 functions. We have send testimonial and submit testimonial. If we go to the client, we can see send testimonial is going to be the wrapper. And then submit testimonial is the direct RPC endpoint. So this is the one we want to use. So I'm going to do c.submit testimonial. And then we got to give it the context. So I'm going to do ctx is equal to context.background. And you can think of context kind of as like a concurrency type thing. We're not really using it here, but we could do something like ctx equal to context.with timeout, and then specify the timeout value. And then what would happen is once the timeout hits, then it would end the routine. You can also put variables on it. So we could do like put the memory address of the get client, the client here, and then inside of functions, like then load the memory address. It's kind of a way to, I guess, wrap kind of global variables and just handle the context of applications. It's not really important for this video, so I'm not going to go into it too much. So we pass the context in, and then we want to go pb.testimonial submission, And then this is going to be the testimonial. So we'll do customer is equal to Ippsec. And then the testimonial is going to be, that's funny. Copilot knows I do videos. Let's see. We'll do hello from gRPC Golang app. So that will be it. This does return a response, so we can catch that. We can say reply error like this. And if error is nil, that's fine. And now we're going to print the reply. So if I do go run, we see testimonial has been submitted successfully. We're going to refresh our page, and we see it's been updated, say hello from Golang app. So now that we have the application working, the next step is going to be to abuse the path traversal and write a temple file. So what we want to do is look at our path. So we are writing in this directory. So we want to go up out of testimonials, up out of public. So that's going to be go up 2 directories. And then what we want to do after that is go to view home index.temple. So view home index.temple. And then we want to write a file. And this is where like handling it in Golang is going to be nice because we don't have to worry about any escaping. I'm just going to create a new file. I'm going to call it pwn.go. And then let's go here. Let's go to the temple. We'll copy everything out of it. And then we don't need those functions because we're going to write new ones. And then we're going to delete all the HTML out of this. And we can say div. We're going to call pwn. So we'll do pwn like that. And then /div. And then we can say func pwn. That's going to be, sure, a string. So what do we want to do? We want to grab a list of all the files. So we'll say files error is equal to io_util.read directory. And we're going to read the current directory. And if error is nil, that's fine. Now we're going to, let's see what it did. I think that's fine. So we're going to assign file names as a string. Then we're going to loop over all the files in directory. If the file is not a directory, we're going to append the file name to this slice. And then at the end, we're going to return a string. That looks perfect. So I think that is good. The last thing we want to do is clean up any unused imports because Golang will error if we're using an import that doesn't work. And oddly enough, it did not put the correct one. I'm scared I have an error I'm not seeing. Because we have to import io_util. We'll come back to that. Let's see. So here, we'll do pretty much the same thing. So we'll say file error is equal to io_util read file. And I'm going to read pwn. I'm going to rename the file to pwn.back because if I left it as go, the application wouldn't run because it has a unknown file. So that's what I'm going to rename it. And then we can say down here, this should be the contents of the file. It's just a slice of bytes. And we replace that with string file. So because it's expecting a string. So that will convert the bytes to string. And that should be good. Let's go back up here. This is the package. It's deprecated. It is now OS. So we should just do OS. OS read file. Okay, that's fine. Do we do that here? Do they have OS read dir? I want to make sure. Looks like it does. That should be fine. io/fs. I don't think we're using fs. We're definitely using strings. Right? No, I'm not. No, I am. Strings join. Okay. This is good. Let's rename this to pwn.back. And this is going to be the moment of truth, if we did this correctly or not. So I'm going to save both of these. And we're going to hope this works. Testimonial submitted successfully. Go back here, refresh the page, and there we go. We have a listing of files. We can switch. That did not make it any easier to read. We don't see the flag, so we can now change this to go up another directory. Run this again. Refresh. It's going to rebuild the application. There we go. And we have the files here. So we have this flag. We could just read this directly, but we could also go in here and say if file dot, we'll do, yeah. If file dot name, let's do strings dot has prefix. Let's go back to Go, so my IDE works fine. Strings dot, I wish this was auto-completing for me. Maybe it'll work in this file. Strings dot, there we go. I think like this error message is confusing my IDE. So do if strings has prefix, file name, and we're going to say flag. And we can also do strings has suffix, file name text. Then we want to read the file. So we're going to say content error os read file on the file name. And then return content. Is that going to be a slice of bytes? It is. String content like that. And then here, we will just say return file not found. Get rid of that. And this should be good. So we'll copy this, replace this function with it, rename pwn.go to pwn.back. And I spotted one small bug. When we're reading the file, we have to go up one directory because file.name is not going to be the full path. So do .. like this, because again, os.reader is up one directory. So that should be fine. And now let's delete that function, save it. And here's going to be the moment of truth if this all just works. So I'm going to do go run, refresh the page, refresh again, and there we go. We have the flag. So that is going to be the challenge of testimonial. I hope you guys enjoyed that and also learned a little bit about gRPC and the whole process. Take care and enjoy the rest of Cyber Apocalypse.